Hello, everyone. This is JD Calderon, and this is Indy Comics Explained. And yet again, I brought on another fantastic guest. But please, before we start with her, hit like, hit subscribe, share out the video, let everybody know we're here. And without further ado, our guest this week is Nina Daisy
Holla!
Aberlein. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing, JD?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm barely awake, but I'm fine. This is how I do things. I roll out of bed, I take a shower, and grab a cup of coffee, and I interview people.
Honestly, hashtag relatable.
There you go. So it's a pleasure meeting you, Nina. I've heard of you. I know of your work, but I've never encountered it fully. Right. So I'm excited to be here with you, and your project is well, actually, let's go back. Let's start off with little Nina, right? When Nina was a little bit younger, and when you were first introduced to the world of comics, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was the comic that you saw that inspired you to create comics? What was that book?
Ooh, that's a tough question. I guess it wasn't one comic that made me want
Mm,
to start creating comic, but as it has been with many mediums, like I would consume a lot of one medium, like comics or like YouTube videos or whatever, and like I liked them so much that I felt like I wanted to contribute to it, and that's initially how it started with comics. And I guess I started. I became a little bit more serious when it came to like reading comics with, and this is a bit old, but not very
okay.
old. I
Uh,
don't know if you've ever heard of Zatchbell.
Satch spell. No, I can't say I have.
Zatchbell or
Mhm.
Kunji, or in the Japanese Konjiki no Gashbell.
Okay. No, can't say.
it's um it's a shonen series from the early 2000s, I think.
Okay.
And anyway, it was one of this it was one of initially one of the animated series that was like one of the few ones that was available on Italian television, pretty much. There,
Hmm.
there weren't many. This was
Right.
one of the ones that was available on Italian television. I was really into it. Like I would be there every single morning, binging every single episode because I was like, it was amazing.
Mm.
And but because in Italian they only dubbed like half the episodes, and so
All
they would
right.
only like air those like 70 something episodes. Like there were like something, there was something like 150 episodes, and they
Hmm.
only dubbed the first 70 something, and I will always re-air those. And it was really frustrating for me, and so I read the comic because I wanted to know how it actually finished.
Right.
And then I was like, oh, this is awesome, this is amazing. And then I started reading more, and then reading more, and then reading more of all genres, like both
Hmm.
the Japanese manga, the DC also a lot. I really like DC. Marvel not so much, but that's another stuff. Um,
Right.
and then I was like, oh, I really want to contribute to this as well.
Hmm.
And like starting to get into drawing,
Hmm.
how to draw YouTube tutorials when I was in middle school. And then,
Right.
one step after the other, I pretty much got to where I am now. Like
Okay.
starting with small projects and then gradually bigger projects. And 3 years ago, I started my currently longest to date project, and it's going pretty much.
It's good.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. 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 Now, as far as illustration and your inspiration, like I know that's your inspiration for doing it. Where were you? Like, who were you learning, taking classes from? Like what books were you learning from? Maybe even whatever. Who were you streaming that were like, these are the guys to like learn comics from?
Well, initially, and I am a little bit ashamed to say this, but that's okay because I was 12 years old.
Okay.
Mark, what's his face? Mark something.
There's a lot
And
of books.
he was known in like the 2010s for
Mm-hmm.
having like a really long list of like good how to draw manga tutorials on YouTube, and that's where I started
Okay. All
pretty
right.
much. But, bit by bit, I took everything more seriously. When I graduated high school, I went to a comic school, and so the
Nice.
next 3 years, I studied. I busted my ass in that comic school. I learned a lot. Spent a lot of money that was not worth what I learned, but I did learn a lot.
Gotcha.
But I did learn a lot. And in the meantime, I started my first few projects, both the short ones, longer ones. And it got me to where I am today, pretty much. So I started with Mark, what's his face?
Right.
I'm thinking of Mark Hamill, but it's not Mark Hamill. It's Mark something. And then comic school, pretty much. Recently, very recently, there was a Kickstarter campaign. And I pledged, I backed their first volume, and I also backed their second volume, which is amazing, called Render Waves Colorpedia. And it's an amazing, I love it so much. It's pretty much an encyclopedia on color theory, comic coloring theory, coloring techniques, digital painting techniques, various tutorials on, it's amazing. So if you're new, if anyone is new to drawing, or even if you're not new, because I'm not new to drawing and I learned so much from it, check out Render Waves Colorpedia, because it's like amazing. I love it.
Nice. Now, were the school that you studied at, was it in the States or was it in Europe?
Europe. But it does have, I think, one branch in the States. The school that I went to is the Scuola Comics. And it's mostly in Italy because it's an Italian comic school. But if I remember correctly, it has one branch in Los Angeles. So it can brag about being international, even though really it's not. But yeah, it's a comic school and it has branches all over Italy, pretty much. And there was one in the city that is nearby where I live. And I went there 3 years. I did the comic course. They offer, it's similar to an art school, almost any art school. So they have courses of all different types. But unlike many art schools, they're, even though it's expensive, it offers courses that are a lot more useful for artists than many art schools. Because art schools here, at least, like traditional art schools, they offer courses on like oil painting, sculpting, restoration of old painting and sculptures, which is like, outside of Italy, it's not going to help you at all. The school, the school that I went to, they had courses in comics, illustration, 2D animation, 3D modeling, character design, graphic design, which is, stuff that is like useful if you want to like get in the business. And I know I've said this before, but I don't think the cost was worth it. But my parents were paying for it, so I guess it's fine. And I did learn a lot from it. So, yeah.
Okay. Now here's the thing, because obviously you took something away from it, right? So what was your biggest takeaway? Like, what's the thing that you think helped you the most? Like, what did you learn that you felt like, yeah, this was the one thing, if I came here for anything, it was this?
Panel composition.
Okay.
Because it's one of the things that, especially many rookie creators, they don't even think it's important. They don't consider it because maybe it's like one of the things that they're not aware it exists, or they're not aware it's important. But panel composition, both like the composition of the panels themselves in the page. So whether it's like 3 rows, 4 rows, the amount of panels, the shape of the panels, and like the composition of like the shape of the panels of the 2 pages next to each other, whether it's also a splash page or not a splash page, or also like artistic composition inside the panels themselves.
Right.
So like whether it's like a close-up, face shot, half body, full body, or something that I don't know how it's called in English, but we call it the American shot, which is like when they show from the head to the knees. It's not a half body, it's not a full body, but they call it the American shot because in Western comics and in Western films, they had to show that the cowboys had guns.
Mm-hmm.
And so they'd only show from the head to the knees. And so because it's Western stuff, they call it the American. So like the different types of shots, but also, you know, like how to turn the camera to show the people speaking, how to have the characters actually do stuff when having it's that pretty much.
Right.
It's one of the things that definitely improved my way of storytelling the most in those 3 years of school.
Okay. That's very good because there are not enough people who they don't focus enough on storytelling, so they always
Oh yeah, or
need that.
also a lot of
So.
people who like maybe when there's a dialogue scene, and this is very common with maybe rookie creators, who have a tendency maybe to do talking heads, in which like every panel there's like a head with a speech bubble
Mm-hmm.
for like almost the entire conversation, and that's
Right.
almost, and it's not interesting. So it's
No.
important to have like a variety of points of view. You know, where like the camera, I say camera, but I think
Oh
you get
yeah.
what I mean. Like
Yeah.
where the camera is pointed, but also like having the characters like actually do something while talking. Because if they're just like sitting and talking, it's boring.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have them like, I don't know, eating,
Right.
walking in a park, drinking
Mm-hmm.
boba tea or whatever, you know, while chatting, then it makes it
Right.
look more interesting.
Mm-hmm. It's more engaging as well.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
especially when they're walking, you can have stuff happen in the background that can improve the
Yeah.
scene. Yeah.
That's actually something that is also very, it's the same thing in many TV series.
Mm-hmm.
And in many comedy sitcoms, they take advantage of this in a really funny way sometimes. Like, for example, like the first that comes to mind is in the TV series Community. Have you heard of it?
I've
It was
heard of it. I've never seen it.
it came out in like 2009, I think, and it
Okay.
only has like 6 seasons or something like that. It's on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
And like in one of the episodes, like, and this is entirely in the background of
Mm-hmm.
like the dialogue scenes and stuff. There's like a character where there's like a woman who is pregnant, and then like in another scene her waters break, and then in another
Right.
scene she is like rushed out with like one of the main characters, and in another
Mm-hmm.
scene she's like giving birth in the trunk of a car or something like that.
Right.
But this is like all in the background while the
Mm-hmm.
main characters are carrying out a regular conversation, and
Right.
unless you're looking at it, you wouldn't notice it, but it makes the entire scene more interesting.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That sounds that yeah, yeah. No, that's actually that's exactly what I mean. Is like doing something interesting in that background.
Yeah.
So now in your school, like I think you know my wife Daphne,
Yeah, I've even cross
right?
promoted with her on a few
Right. So
occasions.
when she was here, we live in New York City. So she went to the School of Visual Arts. She learned with a number of I guess American famous comic book people, Will Eisner and a few others, Dick Giordano and a few others. Um, so I was wondering, in your school, did you have that equivalent? Like, did you have a
Yes,
master from, like, from Italy that, was teaching you yeah.
yes, but it's the Italian equivalent, so it's
Well,
not
that's,
really the same thing.
oh,
It's like saying it's a bit like saying like Michael Jackson, which is both American but also a bit international, and then like
mhm,
the Italian equivalent of Michael Jackson, which is like relevant but only in Italy.
right. But
Okay, sorry.
that doesn't discount his talent,
Yeah.
though. I mean, because Mobius, right? Jean Girard,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
International Topi, right?
Ooh, yeah.
Exactly. Like, there are many, 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 Jodorowsky, there's just
Yeah.
tons,
Absolutely.
So yeah. So who is this gentleman that taught you?
We had a few,
Mm-hmm.
but they were again like Italy levels. Like if you're a fan of Italian comics,
Mm-hmm.
and like to like very brief comic history parenthesis,
Right.
like some of the biggest schools of comics. There's in America, there's Marvel, DC,
Mm-hmm.
Dark Horse, which focuses a lot on especially superhero stuff.
Right.
In Japan, there's Manga.
Mm-hmm.
In France and Belgium, there's the French comics like Tintin, Asterix,
Mm-hmm.
the Daltons, Lucky Luke.
Right.
And Italy kind of has its own school of comics, which is
Mm-hmm.
only black and white and hyper realistic.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very big in Europe in the 80s and the 90s.
Right.
But the biggest publishing company, comic publishing company in Italy, which is Bonelli, in the
Mm-hmm.
past 20 years, it's like kind of refused to evolve. So it's still kind of like stuck to the 90s. And
Mm-hmm.
so most of the teachers that we've had are Bonelli authors. So like
Mm-hmm.
they've created comics for and Bonelli, similar to like Marvel and DC, they don't have like one author, one comic, but
Right.
they have like a series and characters, and those have like multiple authors.
Is Dylan Dog?
Yes,
Yeah,
Dylan
I
Dog
love
is a
that's a
Bonelli.
great book.
Is a
Yes.
Bonelli. Yeah, it's actually like the only Bonelli title that I kind of like. And so like Dylan Dog, Tex, Zagor, Damper. Those are just some example of Bonelli
Mm-hmm.
titles. And most of my teachers were artists for Bonelli.
Mm-hmm.
And so like sorry, so like they've had multiple works published with Bonelli.
Mm-hmm.
And like if you are like a Bonelli connoisseur, there's
Mm-hmm.
a chance that you might know them. Otherwise, not really. Though also because it's a publishing company that is like still stuck to the 90s, but
Right.
also like their reader base is like
Mm-hmm.
between ages of 50 and 80.
Oh, that's
Then
rough.
yeah.
At least here we could say 30 and 50.
No, here is between 50 and 80.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, because also they've like they still stuck to they
Mm-hmm.
still stick to the same format
Right.
from the 90s, and so they're slowly dying off. And
Mm-hmm.
honestly, between us and whoever's watching, good riddance, because I don't really like their comics very
Um, can you still hear me? Because I can't hear you. Gotcha. Okay, there you go.
much. Okay, sorry, my cat walked by and
Yeah, I saw it. Probably figured it was a cat. I was like, okay, I can't hear
yeah.
anything anymore. But okay. Uh,
Yeah, so most of the teachers that I had were authors of this publishing company, which is currently the biggest in Italy, but it is gradually
mm,
being overshadowed by more indie-like graphic novel
mm,
publishers, and yeah,
okay. Okay. Because yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm familiar with Dylan Dog. I'm familiar. There was another book. It was like a fantasy, like Dragonero.
ooh, Dragonero. Yes, actually,
Yes.
one of the teachers that I had then was a regular artist of Dragonero, and I think he did maybe 2 or 3 issues of
Mm,
Dragonero. And back when I was still a student, I bought the issues that my teachers had worked on, kind of to like lick boots, because of course I was in
right.
school, and I really
Mm.
didn't like them. But it was mostly it was a personal preference, mostly because I'm used to comics where like you're able to like read fairly quickly because you can tell
Mm,
what's happening. But
right.
with Italian comics like Dylan Dog, Dragonero, also for example, which are honestly some of the are honestly the only titles actually of that publishing company that young people still kind of sort of read because they have like
Mm,
fantasy supernatural themes that are a bit
right.
interesting. But I guess it's the almost hyper realistic style of those comics that
Mm,
really doesn't get me because
does it?
since it's all black and white, sometimes I have
Right.
to like stare at a panel for like several minutes to understand what is going on because it's
Mm,
so detailed and it's
it's
all
so
only
dense.
black and white. There's no
Right.
grayscale at all, and it's hard to read it sometimes. But I like reading.
Very quickly.
Yeah.
Uh, no, I listen. I find that sort of thing fascinating because, coming from where I come from, I've been reading comics and looking at comics for like stuff's like 8 years old, and but I love hearing about comics from other portions of the world, right? From people who are there. right? Like I know Dylan Dog because it was brought over by Dark Horse. I know Dragon Arrow because that also was brought over by Dark Horse. And I'm fascinated by hearing. Like Daphne and I once took a trip out to Paris, and she came back with a big stack of bande dessinée, and and it's just great to see the international culture because I'm an independent comics guy. Like I grew up on Marvel, I grew up on DC, but it's one of those things where it's just like it has its high points. Frank Miller, Walter Simonson's Thor, that sort of thing, right? John Byrne, his runs on Fantastic Four and X-Men, Alpha Flight, that sort of thing. But I'm really an indie guy. That's the sort of thing I prefer. So when I see stuff from other countries, it reminds me of that. It reminds me of that. Even though it's a big publisher out there, to me it's indie stuff because it's alternative to what we have here. So.
Which reminds me, there is a Netflix series that was added a
Mhm.
couple of months ago. You may not have seen it, and that's okay. And in English, it's called Tear Along the Dotted Lines. And it's
Okay.
an animated series.
Hmm.
And outside of Italy, it wasn't like a big boom. But in Italy, it was
Right.
like a really big thing because it was an animated series of one of Italy's most successful comic creators.
Hmm.
And so if you want, like, if anyone also, if you or anyone watching wants a taste of what the non-traditional Italian comic industry is like, and you've got Netflix, you should check it out because it's hey Jimmy, hey Mike, Lorcha, what up? Um, but like it mirrors also his storytelling techniques amazingly, and it's such a good series. I've seen it like 3 times. It's amazing.
Tear
But
along the
yeah,
dotted lines.
tear along the dotted lines. In Italian, it's strappare lungo I bordi, which pretty much means tear along the dotted lines, and it's so good. It's so good. Okay, sorry.
Now,
This is a small parenthesis.
now, is it about the creator creating work?
Oh, not
Oh,
quite.
okay.
All of this creator's works, including this
Hmm.
animated series, are all autobiographical or semi
Gotcha.
autobiographical. But
Hmm.
it's the way he tells these stories that is like really entertaining, pretty much. So
Hmm.
like he can take like a 200-page volume to tell about one day.
Right.
Pretty
Okay.
much. And that's mostly because he starts by, saying something like, so one morning I get up out of bed, and then like he goes on a tangent because like
Mm.
maybe for example he sees a coffee cup on his nightstand, and the coffee cup reminds him of something from his childhood, and in that childhood he had a really mean teacher, but that teacher also built expectations on him, and that expectations molded his personality until he one day realized that the teacher's opinions didn't. So he like goes on tangent like that, and
Right.
it really like drags you into his train of thought that
Hmm.
makes it really entertaining, and like it really drags you into it pretty
Hmm.
much, and so it makes it like really fluent in the way he tells stories.
Okay. Cool. I will definitely. I'll check that one. You said it's
It's
on.
worth it.
Is it on Netflix?
It should be on Netflix, yeah.
Okay. Cool. Now I got a question. Like I've seen your style, and it looks very open, very very anime. You know, somewhere between, I guess, French, Belgian comics and animes, like somewhere, some kind of
It has
cross.
been described as a European manga style
Right.
before.
Exactly. Yes. So yeah, that would definitely be somewhere in that wheelhouse. Now, when you were in school, being taught by these hyper realistic, heavy pen and ink, teachers. Now, how much like because Daphne,
Mm-hmm.
she was taught by Will Eisner, and he had certain things. He was like, look, you need to change this, you need to change this, you need to work on this, right? So that's any teacher. That's what they're there for, right? So what was like? Obviously, I know you must have gotten a lot of pushback from that style. So what was the thing they were mostly telling you? Like what were they?
Actually, that's not quite how it went.
Mm.
Because my first works, like before, like I did draw with an anime style,
Mm.
an anime-ish style occasionally. I mostly worked with a more semi-realistic style a bit.
Okay.
Like the very first long, serious comic that I had was in a more semi-realistic style. And I've got the copy here, like, just to show you.
Oh, nice. Well,
And this
Maya.
was, like, our name was Maya.
Mhm.
And this was between the last year of high school and, like, the first year of comic school, pretty much.
Mhm.
And also, like, especially the first year, they had us focus a lot on, like, anatomy, perspective, traditional
Mhm.
art stuff that is common to any first year of any art school, pretty much. And so when we reached the second year, most of us were pretty much used to drawing almost exclusively with either a realistic or semi-realistic style.
Mhm.
And one of the exercises they had us do during our second year was to draw in they called it grotesque style. But
Mhm.
I don't think grotesque is the right word, because grotesque normally, like, makes you think of something like scary and spoopy or whatever. But they meant something that is more, like, exaggerated in its features, like the
Right.
traditional French comics. So, like,
Mhm.
1010, Asterix and Obelix, Lucky Luke, the Daltons, Augie and the cockroaches, like many French
Right.
comics that have, like, a very exaggerated style, like in the
Mhm.
way they, like, do, like, the bodies, the
Right.
noses, the eyes. It would be very geometrical but very exaggerated
Mhm.
also. And so in the second year they had us experiment in pretty much, like, unbuilding our realistic or, like,
Deconstructing.
semi-realistic style and, like,
Mhm.
reconstructing it in a more exaggerated way.
Mhm.
And so one of the projects that we did during our second year was that they gave us an assignment of, like, 4, 5, 6 pages of a comic of whatever story we wanted. So
Mhm.
normally they would give us, like, scripts to work on, but this time they gave us complete artistical freedom, as long as it was, like, in this grotesque style,
Mhm.
on whatever we wanted. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to, like, try, and experiment, with this cartoony style. And so I did, like, a 5 or so page comic on a woman driving at night, singing, minding her own business. And
Nice.
then while driving, she hits a bird with her
Mhm.
car, like, on the windshield.
Right.
And then she takes the bird home and tries to nurse it back to health and say, I'll take you to the vet tomorrow. I'm sorry. Please don't hurt
Right.
me. And I know you're a big bird.
Mhm.
And, like, nurse it back to health. And the next morning she wakes up with a half naked harpy in her bed,
Uh.
embracing her.
Right.
And I fell in love with the concept, pretty much.
Mhm.
And so as soon as I finished the project that I was working on at the time, which is Our Name Was Maya, I
Mhm.
was like, you know what? I really like this concept. I'm going to, like, work on it as my next project. And so in, like, August of 2018, I started working on Sunrise Blossom, and 3 years later, here we are.
Okay, cool. So yeah, well, it's a good transition because you have your current you've already done one Kickstarter?
Yeah, I
Okay.
kickstarted Volume 1, which was
Nice.
actually, it was on Indiegogo, Volume 1. And
Gotcha.
it's
Okay.
220 pages of
Hmm.
work, though
Nice.
it's mostly in grayscale.
Hmm.
And Volume 2 goes live next week. And it's, like, 53 pages,
Hmm.
full color, and the art
Nice.
is so much better than Volume 1. It's a lot better.
Hmm. Are you?
Yeah.
Well, no, no. Go ahead. Keep going. Keep going. Don't worry about
And this time I'm doing it on Kickstarter, not on Indiegogo,
it. Hmm.
because for some arcane reason I was never really able to figure out Indiegogo would, like, turn down a lot of payments.
Really? Okay.
So, like, for example, even my own dad, like, had to, like,
Hmm.
try multiple times to
Hmm.
pledge, because it kept turning down their card. But
Weird.
it was, like, an international thing. Like, it would turn down some cards in Italy. Many
Hmm.
people in the States tried to pledge, but they couldn't because Indiegogo wouldn't take their card. So
Hmm.
potentially I may have even lost something like $100.
Right.
because Indiegogo wouldn't take their payments, and they just the people in question just gave up and were like, you know what, I'm not that interested in it anymore, so I won't pledge on PayPal or whatever. So this
Right.
time I was like, I'll try on Kickstarter.
Kickstarter. Okay. Are you making the first volume available?
It is already available,
No,
and
but
it will be available for purchase on
Kickstarter.
on Kickstarter.
Okay.
So as well, so first volume, second volume, as well as many nice little prints, bookmarks, and all the things that were available on the first campaign will also be available on the second campaign, with many extra features, including volume 2 and a few extra prints.
Okay. Cool. Now, well, okay. So, do you consider yourself? Well, okay. I mean, this question might be a little weird because you're a writer artist, so you're doing both, right? Would you consider yourself a writer first or an artist first?
An artist.
An artist first. Okay.
Writing is so hard for me. It is so hard. Like, I have to keep a million different notebooks
Right.
for my writing. It's so hard for me. Like even in my phone, I keep like in the notes app, you know, something like whenever I have an idea, I like add it there, and like I have like a little notebook, like a really small one that I always keep in my bag. Like whenever maybe I see something and I get an idea for a potential plot point, I write it down, and it takes me a lot of time to both write the scripts and storyboard, mainly because if like I'm thinking about it, I feel like stuck in the box, thinking of like, oh shit, what happens next? What do I do? The characters do next, and because I feel like stuck in the box, it gets really difficult to like step out of it and think more objectively. Like, okay, what tropes work? What tropes don't work? How the plot would also move organically. It's really difficult. So definitely more an artist first before of a writer, but because the characters are like so close to me, like also emotionally, I definitely would not trust an external writer with my characters. So
Gotcha.
it is difficult,
Mm-hmm.
but bit by bit, I hope at least that I make it work.
Okay. Okay. Now, let me. Are you also selling the books in Italy in Italian?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, I got the Italian copies for Volume 1 last week,
Mm-hmm.
and it took me a frustratingly long time to send out the Italian copies, because the Indiegogo campaign was in like May of last
Right.
year. And because of the day job that I have, because I teach, I had almost no work in the summer immediately following. And so the money that I received from the crowdfunding campaign, I like ran out of it quickly. And so by
Okay.
the time I had like the finished Italian translation, I was like, is it okay to say the F word?
Yes.
Okay, I was like, fuck! I don't have the money to print it!
Uh-huh.
And so I had to like save up money again to be able
Right.
to print the Italian copy. And I was finally able to print it and ship it out. And also, so now also like in conventions and stuff like that locally, I'm able to sell the second volume. And in theory, because the various conventions that I signed up for keep getting canceled again because of the pandemic,
Right.
by the time I'll be able to start conventions again, I'll have both the first and the second volume, because most of the formatting work is already done.
Gotcha.
So it will be a lot faster than with the first volume. So yeah, also fingers crossed, of course.
Now, locally, like, how many conventions do you figure you have locally that you visit annually? Like, when things are normal.
So when things are normal, well, actually, like I first started attending conventions in 2019, And so like I did 1 year in which I was like boom, 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 and then stop.
Right. Gotcha.
So, but like, so if I think there was like one in February, 2 in April, then 1 or 2 in the summer, and 1 in July. Then in September there was another one.
Okay.
Well, on average, like without pulling up my calendar, I'd say maybe 5, 6, 7. Like at least in my area of northern Italy, and that's like also including non-strictly comic events. Like there was this really fun event that I was able to attend only once, sadly, because of the whole pandemic situation, which was a it was technically a role-playing game weekend away, pretty much.
Okay.
So it was like an entire weekend at like this campsite, and the entire weekend people from all over northern Italy would come and like play Dungeons and Dragons, Pathfinder, Vampire the Masquerade,
Right. Yeah.
Cthulhu, you know, like all those role-playing games. And I had a friend that was like, "Hey, Nina, I know you draw. Why don't you come over and like offer, you know, like drawing services for like people to have their like D&D characters drawn and stuff?" And so that was like fun, but including conventions and events like that, maybe 6 or 7 a year roughly.
Gotcha. Now, do you find now are you guys are the local fans very supportive of like local creators? Like, do you find that, you know, they're like, oh, you know, this is from here, let me get this?
Yes and no.
Uh-huh.
So yes, but not just because they're local, kind of. Like, as we were talking about before about the Bonelli publishing company, which does like Dragonero, Dylan Dog, Tex, Zagor, and a million others. Like those people, you know, between the ages of like 50 and 80 or 70 or whatever, they're really loyal to them. But I think it's also because they've been reading them almost nonstop since like the 80s or 90s or so. So it's a loyalty based on the fact that they've been supporting them for so long, pretty much. But aside from that, not really. Because like even in comic conventions, most people who are like my age they buy unlicensed anime merch that was like taken from, that was pirated from some fan art they found on google.com and printed it without asking the author's permission and selling it at, sorry, words, too much wine, I apologize. So yeah, most people who are like roughly my age who also go to comic and anime and manga conventions mostly go there for the My Hero Academia and the Narutos and not really for the local creators.
Gotcha. So
I
it's
actually,
the same. So it's the same there as it is here. It's the same.
I guess. Like what's a figura di merda in English? Like a really, really, really bad first impression, pretty much. So there was this one time I was at a convention, and I have a few friends, like also from comic school and friends that I've made, you know, from going to several conventions locally. Like there was this one time we were seated next to each other, like our booths were next to one of my friends. And I was like, oh my gosh, if I see one more cosplayer who is cosplaying Todoroki from My Hero Academia, I'm going to fucking shoot myself. And just as I said that, a cosplayer who was cosplaying that specific character, who was actually a personal friend of the person I was speaking to, walked by. And they looked at me and they were like, "Oh, I'm sorry." And I was like, "Oh no." It was so embarrassing. Yeah,
That's
most
hilarious.
people who are roughly my age are just for the anime, pretty much.
Hmm. Gotcha. Now, so let's talk about Sunrise Blossom. I mean, I don't know much about it, so tell me, fill
All
me in.
right.
What's the story about?
All right, so if you like harpies, if you
Mm.
like girls smooching, if you like falcons and big birds of prey, if you like drama, you will definitely like Sunrise Blossom. So, what is Sunrise Blossom? So, it is a coming of age story about Ivy, a young falcon harpy abandoned by her birth mother and raised by a family of owls. While traveling with her sister to learn about human culture, they have an argument and Ivy is separated from her, only to be picked up by a human woman, Violet, who helps her discover herself and bloom into womanhood, emotionally and physically.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. But
Sorry.
it is only after a dramatic turn of events that Ivy discovers her feelings for her human companion. And those are pretty much the events of Volume 1. And while in
Mm-hmm.
Volume 2, with no spoilers, of course,
Mm-hmm.
after the dramatic ending of Volume 1, Ivy spends some time with a kind, old, fatherly, sexy Scottish old man.
Nice.
But when his real daughter shows up, it's time for Ivy, our protagonist, to return to her love interest.
Nice. Okay. Sounds like a lot of fun. All right. Cool. Cool. Nice.
I guess.
Nice.
I hope
Uh,
so.
no, no. It definitely sounds like a lot of fun. Now it's currently you have a sign up page currently, right?
Hmm.
Okay. So I
And
put
it's
that in the
going
show
live.
notes.
Yeah, and it's going live next Saturday on
Awesome.
January 15th.
January 15th. Okay. Cool. Now, how long is the campaign? Is it 30 days, 40 days,
Yeah, it's going to be the classic 3-day
30
campaign.
days? Okay.
Hmm.
Cool. 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 Now, from now you're using Kickstarter now, you used Indiegogo before. What are the differences that you've noticed between the two of them so
Currently,
far?
one of the biggest differences that I've noticed, like now that I'm like just about to launch,
Mm-hmm.
is how with Indiegogo, if you had like because I was like, both with Indiegogo and Kickstarter, there's like different packages for backing.
Mm-hmm.
With Indiegogo, you have the ability to like at the top pin like the one that
Right.
you would consider the best, but with
Mm-hmm.
Kickstarter you can't.
Yeah.
It's just frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah.
But while with Indiegogo in the pre-launch page, you're like collecting emails and like you have to like manually insert them into your MailChimp or whatever and then
Mm-hmm.
like send the invitation or the notification that the crowdfunding is finally live. With
Right.
Kickstarter, like you sign up and then when it's live, the website sends you a notification. And I had to learn that the hard way. So like like a few days into my first campaign on Indiegogo, I was like, oh wait,
Mm-hmm.
why are there so few people? And I was like, oh wait, Indiegogo didn't send them a notification. I had to do it myself.
Right.
And
Gotcha.
so
Gotcha.
yeah, those are some of the
Mm-hmm.
biggest differences I've met so far. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
and this is honestly kind of frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
How in regard to pre-launch page,
Mm-hmm.
Indiegogo allows you to show a lot. Like you can
Right.
show a video, you can put pictures, notes, and what to expect of the campaign. But with
Mm-hmm.
Kickstarter, you only have like one picture.
Well, graphic.
How
Yeah.
are you going to get people with just one picture? It's ridiculous. At least let me put up the damn trailer. But now,
Yeah.
whenever I'm like posting promotional memes or whatever, I have to link both the pre-launch page and the trailer because damn it, it won't show the trailer on the pre-launch page.
Okay. No, no, no. I got you. I got you. Yeah. No, that's really cool. Now, what are your expectations for this campaign? I mean, are you looking to? I haven't looked, so I don't know.
Hmm.
I mean, are you looking to raise like $5,000, 2,500?
Oh no, I currently do not have enough of a following to raise that much. My goal is pretty low. It's
Mm-hmm.
only something like 500 euros.
Okay.
But that's because I put in consideration the costs of printing 100 copies in English and in Italian.
Right.
And so for the campaign goal, I just put the bare minimum to make that happen, to put them in print.
Gotcha. Okay.
So for this campaign, the goal is 500 euros, which is about, I don't remember how many dollars, but I think maybe $600.
About $650, somewhere in that. It's usually about 10% more than what the American dollar's running on.
Yeah, something like that. And while for the first campaign, it was actually higher than that. With the first campaign, my goal was 800 euros. But that's also because the first volume was like 220 something pages long. And so it was also a lot more expensive to print.
Right.
Well, the second volume is shorter, but the art is a lot better. It's in full color. It has gorgeous redheads with wings. It has sexy Scottish old men. It has exaggerated romance tropes, but that are really cute, and it works. Trust me on this, it's really cute. I really like it. Heartwarming and tearful reunions. Sorry, I got lost. Anyway, long story short, the second volume is shorter, but personally, I think it's even better than the first. But it's cheaper to print, so the minimum goal is lower. But I do have like a lot of stretch goals if that number goes higher.
Cool. Nice. Well, hopefully, listen, I don't think you're going to have any problems meeting your goal. And I'm pretty sure you're going to do much better than that. Because the book looks awesome. And I think there'd be a lot of interest in, in that book. So I think you're going to do very, very well for yourself. So now look.
I was able to reach the goal with the first volume. In the months since that happened, both my following and my fan base has increased a lot. I published the comic also on Webtoons and Tapas. So like the biggest online webcomic platforms. And the numbers have almost doubled there in like the past 8 months or so. And so I'm fairly sure that I'll be able to definitely reach that goal and go beyond it. But I hope I'll be able to reach as many stretch goals as I can.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Now, we've been at this for a little while, so we're almost at the end, but we're not there just yet. I got a few goofy questions for you that I always ask everybody.
I like goofy questions.
All right, but before we get to that, though, please let everybody know where they can find you and your work, Nina.
Of course. So I've got a Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, newsletter, Tapas, Discord, Furfin. I've got a lot. But because I've got a lot, if you go on my link tree, which is linktr.ee, so the class link tree link, dash Nina D Aberlein, you'll find everything. You'll find the pre-launch page and the actual page when it launches of my Kickstarter, the trailer of this for the second volume, my Patreon, Webtoon, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, TikTok, newsletter, Tapas, Discord, For Affinity, and Facebook page. So if you go on my link tree, you'll find absolutely everything.
Okay, cool. Like I said, I put it in the I actually put it in the comment section so people can see it, and it's also in the show notes, so everybody can check it out there. All right. So for my first question, if you had the choice of any artist, living or dead, right, to do like a special cover for you, right, who would you pick?
Milo Manara.
Oh, okay.
Milo Manara. Mostly because, on one side, I kind of hate the guy. He is known in Italy, especially for his pornographic comic work.
That's what he's known for here too.
Yeah. And the way he sometimes objectifies, I understand he does pornography, but the way he treats women in his work in general is kind of shitty. But his art is so good.
Right. Right.
So it's like on one side, like, ugh, how dare you treat women like
Hmm.
that? But on the other side, it's like, ah, your art is so good. Um,
Right.
so I think Milo Manara mostly because even if hypersexualized and hyper
Hmm.
objectified, if he were like to, I don't know, even draw a very simple half body pinup whatever of
Hmm.
my main Harpy girl, this one pretty much.
Nice.
So this is the
Hmm.
cover of the first volume. I would be drooling over it so hard. Like I've even got a freaking canvas print of his in my bedroom because I love his work so much. But because he is a bit of a jackass, um, my second choice, or maybe even my first, it's hard tie, would
Hmm.
be Chad Hardin.
Chad Hart. Okay, I don't know that name.
He is a comic artist who works mostly for DC,
Hmm.
and he's done Harley Quinn.
Hmm.
He's done the new Superman, which is son of Kal-El.
Right.
And I think he may have worked maybe on Super Sons, but I'm not sure. I don't remember. But he is mostly
Hmm.
known for his work on the Harley Quinn comic franchise. And I am such a fucking slut for Harley Quinn. Uh, so I pretty much read all of his works on Harley Quinn, and I really, really dig his style. And I think that the way he draws in general, but also the way he draws women more specifically, would definitely fit my characters.
Okay. Cool. 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 Well, it's funny. How do you pronounce his name? Because we pronounce it Milo Manara, right?
Milo,
Milo
Milo Manara,
Manara. Okay.
Milo
Milo
Manara.
Manara. Okay. Okay. That's all right. That's cool. Now,
I've got one of his comics on my in my book thing,
mhm,
and not my book thing. What's the word?
bookshelf.
Library bookshelf. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, and I remember I bought it on one day in which I was still in high school,
Hmm.
and I played hooky because I did not want to go to school that day. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna skip school. I'm just gonna like
Hmm.
walk around town. And I stumbled into a bookstore and I was like, ah, it's a Milo Manara book. And so I bought it. It was really expensive for
Hmm.
comics high school student that I was at the time, but I still have
Right.
it, and it's so beautiful.
Yes. His work is incredible. Didn't he? In his defense, didn't he? During the pandemic, I understand he was doing illustrations of women as the workers that were still working.
Yes,
And
I've
and I
seen many of them on Facebook.
mhm. Yeah, was he donating those to charity? I don't even know.
I have no idea. I
Yeah,
mean,
because I know
the
he.
only thing that I noticed about those illustrations that he posted on Facebook was
Hmm.
that in those pictures, the women, who were like
Hmm.
nurses and stuff, didn't have their tits out.
No, no, he
So
was very
that's like,
respectful.
yes, and that is good.
He's very
But which is
respectful.
actually kind of surprising because I
Hmm.
remember that back in the day when like 9/11 happened, he
Right.
did an illustration, to like, oh, that is so sad what happened, but it was a
Hmm.
sexy woman in a
Okay.
building with a plane
Mhm.
coming towards her. And that
Right.
was like, and it was like, it's a tragic event. Why are you making it sexy? But
Right.
this time he didn't make it sexy, and that's good. But whether or not he donated them, I have no idea because I do
Hmm.
follow him and his page on Facebook, so I have seen like all the illustrations he's posted
Right.
about the healthcare workers and stuff. But
Hmm.
nothing was mentioned in those posts about donating or not. So I
Gotcha. Okay.
don't know.
Because just as far as an illustrator, he's an incredible illustrator. His stuff is
Yes.
just
Yes.
incredibly beautiful. All right, so let's move on. Nina, if you got the what we like to refer to as the golden ticket, and they called you up to the big companies, it doesn't matter what company, it could be any company, whether it's here, there, wherever, right? And they said, Nina, pick any title, any character. Who would you want to work on, or what would you like to work
Harley Quinn.
on? Okay.
I
Mhm.
mean, but that's mostly because I mean, the image they gave her after the first Suicide Squad movie was like, no, thank you. But before that, the character that she had, like I don't know. She's just like what she was / is such a fascinating character, and even in her own comic universe, there are so many really interesting characters that I think should be canon all over the DC universe. That, and also I'm so familiar with her comic franchise that I would absolutely love to be a part of it. Like there are some characters in her franchise that are, they should be canon all over the DC universe because they're so good. Like when the first Deadpool movie came out several years ago, there were so many fans who were like, "Oh, this character is awesome. He definitely fits like Harley Quinn's personality or whatever. We should definitely have him like be with Harley Quinn or whatever." Because because Harley Quinn is DC and Deadpool is Marvel, that wasn't very easy to happen. So what did DC do? They introduced a new character called Red Tool. And he is identical to Deadpool in every single way, except for the fact that his gimmick is power tools. And that's about it.
That's about it. Okay.
It's so cool. It was so cool. But yeah, if I could, I would absolutely love to work on the Harley Quinn franchise. But even the Batman franchise in general, like Batman is for me one of the only things that, for me, again, and this is very personal just to me, makes DC interesting. It's like while Marvel has its interesting heroes, it has this amazing Marvel Cinematic Universe, DC has the most fascinating villains that, like, I love them so much. Like aside from, Harley Quinn, like we've already established I'm a slut for her, that aside, characters like the Penguin, the Riddler, I love them so much. Okay, sorry. This is just really fascinating for me. Or even like the modern Batman canon, things like the new Robin, Damian Wayne, the relationship he has, with the previous Batman characters, like Dick Grayson, and so forth. No, I say Harley. Of course, I've been tracking this for so long. I apologize.
No, it's okay.
My first answer is Harley Quinn, but really anything relating to the Batman universe, I am A-okay. I would be A-okay.
Okay, that's cool. Now I have a bunch of comparatives. I don't know how familiar you are with a lot of my stuff is for American stuff, pop culture. So we're gonna test your American geek cred. So we'll see how that rolls. But I'll try to throw out some that a little different. All right. So all right. So here you go. We'll start. I'll softball you with a couple, and then we'll work our way in. All right.
Okay.
Here we go. Well, maybe this one isn't a softball, but here we go. Manga or anime?
It depends.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on the series, mostly because in some cases, the manga is more visually appealing. So in some cases, the anime is more visually appealing than the manga, but there are many cases in which the manga works better overall.
Okay.
So, like for example, One Punch Man. The anime is delicious, but the action, the way the action is translated in the manga is so much better. Like there are some dynamic scenes, like the first that comes, I don't know how familiar you are with One Punch Man, but there are some there is the first that comes to mind is the scene in which the main character fights a villain whose power is like super speed, And in the manga, it's translated so well, and it gives the sense of dynamics. But in the anime, it's more like a rotating camera that is a lot more bland in comparison. Or also like Berserk. Oh my goodness. All of the freaking Berserk anime movies are so trash. They're so freaking bad. But the manga is, is so good. But there are also sometimes, and this is mostly in maybe some more mellow, not as like action focused series. Like the first that comes to mind is like Ore Monogatari, which is a mellow, sweet romance series.
Okay.
And in that one, I like the anime better, mostly because having the colors, having sound, having an actual voice to connect to the characters makes it feel a lot more intimate than the manga does. So it depends on like also the genre, but for the biggest titles, I would probably say manga.
Okay. Let me just go through some of these. I'm sometimes I forget to click on Facebook and make it universal, so I don't get the
That's
messages.
fine.
So I had, so Trish, she says, "Good afternoon, beautiful people.
Hello.
Most comics get better as they go on. Just my opinion.
Ramen.
That's so cute." He said the F word. Says, "Whoop, my kind of people." I'm watching because I'm interested in your book. Nice.
Oh, thank you.
Love Harley, and her personality is so different from moment to moment.
It's also so different from franchise to franchise. Like in the comics, the animated series, animated movies, live action movies, it's like completely different people. Which is like both a pro and a con, I guess, from how you look at it.
Right. Okay. Now. Okay. So. All right. Cool. So. Huh. Oh, do you prefer printed or digital?
Ooh, both. But mostly I kind of say digital because my main publishing platform is Webtoons.
Gotcha.
And on Webtoons, almost everything is free to publish and free to read. So, like, also a lot of the friends that I have in the comic community are Webtoon creators. So I'm so used to like waking up in the morning, making some coffee, cut a slice of cake for breakfast or whatever, and gosh, what's the word? And like and open like the Webtoons app and see like what comics updated during the night and like catching up on them. But at the same time, like I have a pretty big collection of physical ones as well. Though I must admit, the physical ones I mostly purchase to support the creators.
Right.
Like, for example, I've already read all of Beastars. That didn't stop me from buying every single copy that was available for purchase physically because it's a series that I really like, and I wanted to support the franchise and the author as much as I could.
Okay. Cool.
Also, Trish, mood. I am absolutely a slut for Harley, 100%. Like I have a tattoo on my lower back that is like her 3 diamonds, and when I got that tattoo done, because like her diamonds look like the logo of a swimwear company. The tattoo artist asked me if I was a fan of swimming when I got the tattoo done, and I was like, no. It's a Batman villain. Yeah.
There you go. Love making buttons. Need to make one of it says I'm a slut for Harley Quinn. Too cute.
Thank
Nice.
you. Yeah, I would buy that button. Hit me up if you make it. Absolutely.
Okay. RPGs or video games?
Okay, by RPGs, do you mean stuff like Legend of Zelda, or do you mean stuff like Dungeons and Dragons?
I mean Dungeons and Dragons, like physical at the table with other people, with the
Normally, I'd
dice.
say video games, but mostly because with video games, like the past few months, I've been caught into Fortnite a little bit. but mostly because those are games that I can get into whenever I want. They're free to access, and I can like play for 10 minutes and quit whenever I want, pretty much. So because of that, it can be like something to like fill up the time, and it can be a bit of a stress reliever. But if the dungeon master is good, and the story is compelling, and the campaign is well organized, then RPGs all the way.
Gotcha.
As long as they're not like longer than 3 hours, and then it gets distracting.
Okay. Here's one for you: Doctor Strange or John Constantine.
Ooh. Constantine.
Okay.
Mostly because, I mean, and this is more like movies wise a little bit. Between Benedict Cumberbatch and Keanu Reeves. Keanu Reeves. Pretty much.
Gotcha.
But character wise, Doctor Strange. Even though he, at least in the MCU, and in the animated movies, because I haven't read into the comics for Doctor Strange much, but I have seen, aside from the MCU movies and a couple of animated movies for Doctor Strange, he can be like a dumbass, and like, you know, the kind of like where like you sit and you're staring at the screen and it's like, you're supposed to be a neurosurgeon, how can you be so kind of, if you get what I mean.
No, I get exactly what you mean when it says that. This question with table talk and how accounts will be fair. Yes, this is true, Trish. I agree. Let's see. Comics or trade paperbacks?
Paperbacks.
Okay.
Mostly because like maybe comics, like mostly mainstream stuff, like maybe I'll read once, maybe twice, and then I'll be like, oh, whatever, I'll just read, I've already read this, and like move on. Especially with like issue-based comics like DC, Marvel, and stuff, where like, you know, maybe like every single week or every 2 weeks or every month they got something new, and so there's like always something new, and so it's hard, it'll be difficult for you like to like read something more than once. While with like trade paperbacks and also indie stuff, especially if maybe the quality is different, or if it's like a graphic novel or something like that, then it's definitely something that you'll sit on the toilet and read more than once.
Gotcha. Trish writes, JD been watching for over a year, and this has
Thank
been one of my
you.
Yes, thank you, Trish.
Mwah.
Yes. Akira or Nausicaa?
Or, sorry?
Nausicaa.
Nausicaa. Akira.
Okay.
Akira. Mostly, I'd have to say, because of the way it definitely revolutionized both animation, but also like simple dynamic action scenes in both like comics, but in animation, like the freaking bike, oh my god, it's like pff,
Yes.
I love it. So I have to say Akira for that one.
Okay, cool. All right, we've done a few of them, so I'll ask you a couple more, and then we'll wrap up. All right. Harry Potter or Narnia?
In 2022, I think the answer should be fairly a lot easier than it would have been, I don't know, 10 years ago. Narnia.
Gotcha.
But mostly, I think it's also, this answer is also probably influenced by the fact that growing up, I didn't really read Harry Potter. I mean, like, I watched the movies growing up, but I didn't read Harry Potter. And I did read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And while I'm not really invested in Narnia as a series, because like I know that the movies they did of Narnia are like only like a small fraction of the universe that C.S. Lewis created for that anthology. But while Harry Potter definitely has a more interesting franchise, and the world building in the way it like influenced us culturally is like a lot more interesting. Given the way that the author J.K. Rowling has influenced her franchise. It's definitely led me to lose a lot of interest in Harry Potter as a franchise. So maybe 10 years ago, my answer would have been Harry Potter, but because I don't want to support her anymore, and because the
Mm-hmm.
way she said things and like the things she said have lost me to lose interest and like see Harry Potter in a new light, definitely Narnia. Like also because
Gotcha.
there are so many like small details that I would not have noticed if she
Mm-hmm.
hadn't said the things she said. Like there are
Mm-hmm.
like some small details pertinent to like slavery and
Mm-hmm.
anti-Semitism. Like aside from J.K. Rowling's transphobia, like details of like anti-Semitism and slavery and stuff
Mm-hmm.
that like as a child I didn't really notice. But because of the political position that the author has taken, it has led me to see things in a new light and notice things that I didn't notice before which are a bit,
Right.
well, Narnia has like Jesus and Santa Claus and a
Right.
lion and talking beavers. It's really fun.
Exactly. Well, it's a little bit more lighthearted. Mike James asks, Superman or Spider-Man?
Okay, normally between Marvel and DC, I personally prefer DC,
Mm-hmm.
but between Superman and Spider-Man, Spider-Man wins by a landslide. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, like Superman was like one of the OG superheroes. You know, he's like can do everything. He's super strong, laser vision, can fly, can hear everything, everything. But
Mm-hmm.
because of that, and also because of his like morally immaculate, like moral compass, he's pretty boring.
Yes.
I mean, like when it comes to like even the new Superman, Henry Cavill is really hot, but
Mm-hmm.
it's really boring. Well, Spider-Man is so much more interesting. Like the way his powers are a lot more limited than the
Mm-hmm.
Superman's. The villains he has to face, the moral conundrums, everything is compared, especially to Superman, is so much more interesting, and that is, of course, without considering the amazing storyball. I don't know what other word to use. That was No Way Home, which was like so good. Like even without considering that, Spider-Man definitely wins by a landslide. Like even the character design is so much superior, in my opinion. Again, of
Mm-hmm.
course.
Okay, cool. Labyrinth or Pan's Labyrinth?
Oh, I love both of them so much.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Music, Pan's Labyrinth.
Okay.
Puppet design, Pan's Labyrinth. Like
Mm-hmm.
like the freaking fawn in Pan's Labyrinth, so creepy, so beautiful, had me glued to the screen.
Mm-hmm.
David Bowie's crotch, Labyrinth.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. That was a favorite for a lot of people. So
Yeah,
yeah.
but also like the soundtrack, I preferred Pan's Labyrinth a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like the lullaby, sorry, the lullaby that the character, I think her name was Mercedes, sang to the protagonist
Right.
at the end, which was also a song that was present as a soundtrack throughout the series, was
Mm-hmm.
like something that my 12-year-old little mind had stuck in her brain for years after
Mm-hmm.
watching that film. But you remind me of the babe. What babe? The babe with the power. What power?
Mm-hmm.
The power of voodoo. Who do? You
Mm-hmm.
do. You do what? Remind me of the babe has been stuck with me a
Right.
lot longer since then.
Gotcha. All right. We'll wrap it up with this one. Lord of the Rings or Star Wars?
It's a tough one.
Mm-hmm.
So, because both of them did incredible contributions to the both genres that they're part of. On one hand, like with Star Wars, after they were bought by Disney, aside from the new trilogy that came out of it, so much more content was made available because it was bought by Disney. You know, things like the the Boba Fett series, which is brand new. The Baby Yoda series, whose name is escaping me right now. The Obi-Wan series. The freaking Clone Wars animated series. Like, because Disney bought it, they were able to give us so much more of this universe that we love. But the contribution that Lord of the Rings gave us is immense on a whole different level. Like, we would not have Dungeons and Dragons and so many RPGs that we have now if it were not for the Lord of the Rings series. However, I also think that the movie trilogy of the Lord of the Rings series had a really big influence in how that franchise affected us culturally. So I'd say when it comes to general culture, literature, general culture, literature, and the way it heavily impacted fantasy in general, the way it molded fantasy as a genre, I'd have to say Lord of the Rings. However, yes, Lord of the Rings, definitely. Because I can't really say that Star Wars molded sci-fi as a genre, because Star Trek hit similar themes 10, almost 20 years before the first Star Wars movie came out.
Right.
So because Star Trek existed before Star Wars came out, while I really enjoy Star Wars as a franchise, without Star Trek, we probably would not have had Star Wars. While without The Lord of the Rings, our culture, especially nerd culture, would not be the same it is today. So I would have to say Lord of the Rings.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool. Mike says, great questions. Thank you, Mike. So there we go. Nina, we made it to the end.
Thank you for having me. That was so fun.
Thank you for being here. Now, don't forget, everybody, Nina's book is coming out, what, the 15th?
Yep, next Saturday.
All right, cool. So it's coming out next Saturday. Sunrise Blossom, go check it out. Go sign up for the I don't know, the early page, so you can be warned, and they can let you know, and you can go in and buy Sunrise Blossom.
So gay birds, drama, Falcons, Sunrise Blossom, go for it.
All right, hold on. Might put up Star Wars is because Flash Gordon, not Trek. There you go.
But Flash Gordon was prominent in the United States. In Europe, it was not really a thing.
Gotcha.
I mean, like, it was a bit present in its day, but not nearly at the same level, alas.
Gotcha. Well, Nina, please, one more time, let everybody know where they can find you and your work.
Okay, so it should also be in the description and the comments, but on my Linktree, which is linktr.ee/Nina D. Aberlein, you can find my pre-launch page, the trailer for the second volume, my Patreon, my Webtoon, my Twitter, my Instagram, my Twitch, my TikTok, the newsletter, Tapas, Discord server, Fur Affinity, and Facebook page.
Nice. Okay, there you go. So thank you, everybody, for showing up. Thank you, Nina, for being here. Thank you
so much for having me. It was really fun.
No, yeah, it was awesome. It was incredible. I loved it. So please, everybody, hit like, hit subscribe, share out the video. Later on tonight, I'll be back with a group of independent creators, and we'll be talking about indie comics. So if you want to show up tonight, we'll be here back again at 7:30 p.m. EST. So thank you so much, Nina.
Thank you,
good luck,
everyone.
Yep. Good luck with the book. I honestly don't think you need it, because I think you're gonna do great regardless.
Thank you.
Yes. So thank you so much. I'll be seeing everybody. Have a great day. Take care.